going to talk about our oral probiotic, OraCMU, which is designed to get to halitosis and oral health at the source. So we've all been there when someone is having a conversation with us and we want to kind of walk away. But as you can see here, we probably all were at least at one point the culprit of it ourselves. 1 in 4 people have chronic halitosis, with about 50% experiencing it occasionally. But if you were in a room full of dogs, this goes up to 3 in 4 dogs, which is similar to the stats we saw earlier. But bad breath really isn't just a cosmetic issue. It could be the sign that there's something more serious going on. Similar stats again, 3.5 billion people are affected with oral disease, but in dogs and cats, it's even more striking, with 80 to 90% of them having periodontal disease, especially by the age of 3. And in both humans and pets, there's a high prevalence of oral disease, but there's also low compliance. Only about half of the people following the ADA standards for brushing twice a day. But with pets, again, the compliance is even lower, with only 2% of dog owners brushing their dog's teeth on a daily basis, and more than 50% never having brushed their dog's teeth. In both humans and pets, the risks are similar in terms of the bacteria that cause the bad breath and oral disease can enter the bloodstream and travel to the different organs, causing infections, especially in the heart, kidney, liver, and brain. So bad breath can come from many different sources: oral hygiene practices, diet, digestive issues, and then there are certain breeds that have a higher risk for halitosis, such as the toy dogs or smaller dogs, and then those with flat faces or flatter faces like pugs and bulldogs. And in humans and pets, the underlying cause of bad breath is the same. It's having a growth of undesirable oral bacteria in the oral cavity. And these bacteria are producing volatile sulfur compounds, or VSCs. And these are what is causing the bad odor. So some of the common culprits of this are methylmercaptan, which has the odor of rotten cabbage, dimethyl sulfide, which smells like sewage, and hydrogen sulfide, which smells like rotten eggs. So OraCMU, what is it? At its core, it's a clinically validated oral probiotic. It's a strain of Weissella cibaria, which is also used in the fermentation of kimchi. But with OraCMU, it was identified by researchers in Korea at the China Medical University, hence the CMU. But they were looking for solutions to address oral health, and looked to the source of healthy, balanced oral microbiome. So these are coming from healthy children, because children tend to have more of a balanced oral microbiome. And this strain was selected for its ability to produce hydrogen peroxide, which has well-known antibacterial and teeth whitening properties. But with OraCMU, really what's so compelling is its clinical backing. At this time, it has 9 human clinical trials, in addition to 2 canine studies, which we'll be focusing on today. And then more than 24 additional studies looking at its mechanisms of action, safety, and stability. So with current approaches to halitosis, like antibacterials and dental treatments, they're more so taking a broad kill everything approach. So they're working in the sense that they're killing the bad bacteria, but they're also getting rid of the good bacteria that we want to keep. So it's essentially like taking a flamethrower to a flower garden just to kill the weeds, when in reality, what we really need is a precision approach. So instead of wiping out everything, the undesirable bacteria are being selectively targeted, so that way the good bacteria are preserved. So this gets to how OraCMU works to reshape the oral microbiome. So it's working through 4 targeted mechanisms. First, it produces hydrogen peroxide, which breaks down those bacterial biofilms that were discussed earlier. So essentially creating an environment where those bad bacteria can't live. And second, it produces bacteriocin-like compounds, and these are selectively targeting those bacteria. Third, it directly reduces the production of those volatile sulfur compounds, so not just addressing the bacteria themselves, but also reducing the odorous gases that they're producing. And then fourth, OraCMU, the Weissella cibaria strain, colonizes in the oral cavity, so basically crowding out any space for those undesirable bacteria to colonize. And as we heard in the last talk, If anyone is a dog owner, you can probably attest to, brushing your dog's teeth not being the most enjoyable or easy task. And this image here kind of highlights some of those reasons why. But these are some of the reasons why there's such a low compliance with brushing on a regular basis. So most dog owners turn to alternatives like those chews and water additives, which they can work, but it's more working on a surface level by scraping off the plaque, or the ingredients are masking the bad odors. And then there are a lot of probiotics that are positioned for oral health, but not necessarily specific to the oral cavity. They're more focused on the digestive aspect of bad breath. And again, if the plaque progresses and a dental scaling is required, it's very stressful for both the human and pet, being that it does often require anesthesia. And it's a very expensive procedure usually if people don't have pet insurance. So there are solutions. It's just that not all of them are really addressing the root of the problem, and they're not always practical for pet owners to implement. So on the consumer side, we're seeing that pet owners are really aware and looking for solutions. So about 94% of pet owners are aware that oral health is very important for their pets' overall health. But again, brushing is still a pain point, so compliance is low, causing the reliance on alternative products. And a lot of the times with these products, the satisfaction is low or it's hit or miss. So it is evident that there's a need and desire for effective and practical solutions. And this is where OraCMU comes in. So as I mentioned, there are currently 2 studies in canines, so we'll go into those briefly. So with the first study, this was a 6-week placebo-controlled design, and it was in 18 healthy beagles. And they were divided into 5 groups. So there was a placebo group that received a dental scaling 1 week prior to the study to control for the maltodextrin placebo. And then 3 active groups of OraCMU. There was a 20 million, 200 million, and 2 billion dose. And these were all administered using a syringe where it was mixed in with a saline solution and applied to the dog's gum line. So for the measures, first there was an organoleptic evaluation, so basically a sniff test where a trained examiner rated the dog's breath from 2 centimeters from their mouth. And then second, the total and individual VSCs were actually quantified by using gas chromatography. And then clinical indicators of oral health such as plaque, calculus, and the gingivitis index. So looking at the results for organoleptic results, as early as week 2, the low dose, the 20 million group, CFU group, already started to show significantly improved breath scores versus placebo. And then by week 6, all of the doses showed this improvement. So this suggests that the effect might not necessarily be strongly dose dependent, but we did see early onset from week 2 and sustained improvement in breath through week 6. And this is corroborated by looking at the measured VSC. So looking at the total VSCs, as early as week 2, across all of the doses of OraCMU were significantly reduced compared to placebo. Again, maintained throughout the end of the study. And then the individual VSCs. So methylmercaptan, which I mentioned earlier, is one of the primary odor-causing compounds. And this was significantly reduced at week 2 across all of the OraCMU doses compared to placebo. And putting this in context, with the week 6 results, there is a known threshold for the total measure of VSCs where it's determined to be uncomfortable for those around you, and that's at 1.5 nanograms per 10 milliliters. And one of the interesting things here is that by week 6, the OraCMU groups were all at or below that level, while the placebo group was almost double. And then dimethyl sulfide also showed reductions at week 6, but just in the low dose and the high dose group. So the VSC results aren't just statistically significant, they're actually noticeable. And then for plaque index, the high dose was the only group that showed significant improvement compared to placebo at week 6. But this is suggesting that in addition to the breath improvement, there's also oral health benefits. And going to the second study, which is similar to the first, but it's building on it more so. The most important difference here in the design is that all of the dogs here started with a professional dental scaling. So looking at things from more of a clean slate baseline. And then the groups were a little bit different. They were either in a placebo, and then we took out the middle dose group. So there was a low dose at 20 million and a high dose at 2 billion CFU. So we kept the same core measures in this study as the first, so the breast score, the VSCs, and clinical indicators. But now we decided to look at the microbiome level effects. So looking at the colonization of OraCMU and then some pathogens and karyogens. So with the breath scores, it's similar to the first study, but because all of the dogs started from a clean slate, the response took a little longer to obtain significance. As you see, the high dose was the only one at week 2 that improved, but then by week 4, the low dose showed significance versus placebo. And again, all of these doses sustained their significance through the end of the study at week 6. And again, because we're starting from a clean baseline, the VSC reductions, the total VSCs also took a little bit longer to emerge. So week 4 was when the high dose started reducing the total VSC count, lasted through the end of the study. And then both doses reduced methylmercaptan over that same time frame. So compared to the study 1, the effect is a little bit delayed, but it is still clearly present and sustained. And we think that this is just reflecting the time required for the oral microbiome to reestablish after that dental scaling. And then plaque index, both OraCMU doses in this study had significantly lower levels than placebo from weeks 4 to 6. Where in the first study it was only significant at the high dose at week 6. But even more importantly, what's worth noting is the black bars, which are the placebo group, their plaque continued to accumulate over the course of the study, whereas the OraCMU groups remained near their baseline values, even after the dental scaling. So suggesting that the OraCMU can help extend the time between professional dental cleanings by slowing plaque reaccumulation. And then looking at the microbiome effects, so at week 6, both of the OraCMU doses had significantly lower levels of key periodontal pathogens, which are also, they produce VSCs, so F. nucleatum and P. gingivalis. We also showed the colonization of Bacillus cebaria, so showing a targeted reduction of harmful bacteria while allowing the good bacteria to thrive. And then what this means from a claims perspective is that OraCMU gives you a few different clinically substantiated categories within the oral health category. So from breath and odor control to oral microbiome balance to overall oral health support. And most importantly, these claims are all backed by species-specific canine clinical research. From a formulating standpoint, it is designed primarily for supplement applications, not necessarily feed. And the key consideration here, similar to our previous talk, is colonization in the oral cavity. So methods that allow a long exposure in the oral cavity or direct application work best. So either a powder on top of food or mix it in water right before consumption, because it is a live probiotic, so it's subjected to be in a low heat and low moisture environment, but it is room temperature stable under typical conditions. The 20 million dose, CFU dose, is what we're targeting based on the studies, and based on our stability data, an input at the time of manufacture of 2 billion CFU is what would ensure that the targeted dose is maintained through the product shelf life. And more opportunities with OraCMU. So in addition to the probiotic OraCMU, we also have a postbiotic version, which is versatile across all delivery formats. It doesn't have sensitivity to heat or moisture, but at this time there's only in vitro data. There's currently four published studies, but these are showing promising results for oral health related pathways, from reducing VSCs and also other areas of oral health, such as modulating inflammation and helping to maintain alveolar bone structure. So stay tuned for that. Wrapping things up, that OraCMU offers a clinically validated microbiome targeted approach to pet oral health. And these are my dogs, Bagel and Nutella. They're our in-house oral health testers. I do brush their teeth as many times a week as I can, but anything like OraCMU or these probiotic or enzyme, whatever ingredients that make it easier, is a win for everybody. And if you'd like to learn more, come by Stratum Nutrition's booth number 1035 right over there. We have samples of OraCMU for dogs, because there are the human studies too, and then other neat giveaways as well. So if there's time for questions, I can take any, but thank you for your time and attention.